Give yourself away, yeah. Give yourself away, let go. Give yourself away, yeah. Give yourself away, let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Surrender to the power of one. Surrender to the power of one. Give yourself away. Give yourself away. Let go. Give yourself away. Give yourself away. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Surrender to the power of the one. Surrender to the power of the one. Give yourself away. Give yourself away. Let go. Give yourself away. Give yourself away. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Surrender to the power of the one. Surrender to the power of the one.
So I invite you now to take a deep breath in, relaxing around that breath, and allowing yourself with the out breath to let go of any remaining stress or tension, fear or worry. Breathing in, breathing out, such that with each successive breath, you clearly open mind and heart. And with your next in-breath, draw in divine life, ever present, coming from one source, an infinite source of life. Taking it into your physical being now and allowing that life to activate every gift, right function, bringing power and strength, bringing wholeness and healing, melting away resistance or obstacles to perfect life, to the whole life. Allowing this life now to also be powered by divine light, divine intelligence, divine love, filling your physical being and bringing it to its highest vibration now. With another deep breath in, draw in divine love into your heart, allowing that love now to melt away resentments you may be carrying or unforgiveness for self or others that is a burden for you now. Allow this love to do its holy work in you, to transform, to heal, to open, to strengthen in compassion and understanding and wisdom, so that all relationships are blessed, that all relationships are brought to their highest vibration in your life. The divine love now moves past the limits of your being and moves into the space surrounding you, so that divine love, its warmth, its embrace is felt. And with another deep breath in, draw in divine light into your mind. Allow that light to highlight resentments, negative thinking, illusions of thought, and dispel them now with the purity of truth, a recognition of the conditions that surround the truth and the truth that underlies them to be brought into fuller expression. Divine light that shows you the way, guides, brings wisdom, greater vision. And now with another deep breath in, let us move deeply into the interior, to the inner sanctuary of our hearts, in the center of our being. And let us now sit, wait, and listen to the still, small voice for God that speaks to us in the depths as we sit in the silence now. Thank you, Blessed Spirit, for you do speak to us in the depths. You do lift our awareness, bringing pictures or words, feelings that arise from the depths of us to guide us, to open our awareness, to show us the way. As we gently return now to this time and place, let us bring with us gifts received in the quiet, such that in the coming hours and days and times of struggle or challenge, we are guided by divine light, opened by divine love, filled with divine life, that we may act from the place that we are guided with right word, right action, and right time. And so from this place, we do feel our gratitude now as we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
Give yourself away. Give yourself away. Let it go.
So today we do continue our series on encounters with Jesus. Each week we've been looking at different stories about Jesus' life or his teachings or some aspect of a story about Jesus that really helps us to understand from a deeper place some teaching. Jesus, as a spiritual teacher, as a wisdom teacher, used everything that came into his experience as an opportunity to share, to offset the assumptions of those around him, and to fill with the opportunity for a reframe, another way to see things, which is always the first place in opening the mind and ultimately cracking open that life into the heart to make true change that lasts. And so today, we're going to be looking about how indeed we make those changes. What are some of the elements? What's on our side of the street? You know, change I often speak of as something that's in a part of your vision, part of something out there in front of you, something that you're attuned to, that's calling to you, a calling and a vision that you're holding, and that it's in collaboration with something greater than yourself. That's true, but there is also some agency on our part, something for us to do, things for us to be willing, and something for us to confront in ourselves. And so today we're going to be talking about a story that comes of probably familiar to many of you. There's a man named Zacchaeus, and you'll find this in the 19th chapter of the Gospel of Luke. It says, he entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him in. And all who saw it began to grumble and said, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. Zacchaeus stood there and said to him, Lord, look, half of my possessions I will give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much. Then Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. So what's interesting in this story is it's a reflection of something that we've touched on in a previous story many weeks back when Jesus was calling his disciples, because we encountered a tax collector at another time, Matthew, who became a very pivotal, instrumental part of Jesus' team of his apostles, Matthew, who himself was a tax collector. And it's important to note that what the role of tax collector was, particularly in those days. Jesus' people were oppressed by Roman rule, and peacefulness and quiet, as well as the exacting of taxes, were the 2 main purposes of the soldiers in their midst. And it was unequivocal, and it was brutal, and it was clear that you paid your taxes and you didn't incite any upset in the order of things, that everything went along as it needed to. Other than that, they didn't really care what you did so much. They didn't care how you lived your life. They weren't there to tell you how to live. They told you what you were going to do and what you were not going to do within those 2 frames of being in peace and order and allowing things to continue and paying your taxes. And so what they did was they would invite people from the community, invite, appoint, coerce, I'm not sure what words to use, but they actually would get people from the community to take those taxes and to call on them from each of the households. And the percentage of the tax that was levied was what was supposedly dictated by Rome. But at the same time, the tax collector would tell you what you were owing and what you were owing and what you were owing. And so it was very easy for them to ask a little bit more from you because it looked like you had pretty good, crops this year. So we might take a little bit extra and I'll put a little bit in my pocket before I pass it up the chain. And so what would happen is the tax collectors were often the richest people in the communities. You can imagine how much resentment there could be in that. And so there was the sacrifice or the decision that was made about how you would actually be an honest tax collector versus a tax collector who was, trying to make a living as well. And so in all of that, the tax collectors were indeed the pariahs of their neighbors. And so you can tell by the way Zacchaeus acts that he knows this. He feels that. He feels all of that judgment. And he doesn't go and present himself in front of Jesus to learn more about this man, because he knows that he would be inserting himself in front of all of the neighbors and in front of everybody else. And so he climbs a tree to get a better vantage point to stay unnoticed, he hoped. And Jesus, of course, stops and says, I'm going to your house today. And you saw the immediate response of the crowd was, he's going to the house of the sinner. Look at this guy. Everybody can tell. Everybody knows. But the interesting thing is that when Zacchaeus is joyful, comes down, he stands there in front of all of the town, in front of all of his community. And to Jesus, he holds his ground. And he says, look, half of my possessions I give to the poor. And if I've defrauded anyone of anything, I pay back 4 times that. In this way, he is actually being able to defend himself in a visible way with a great deal of courage, to take a risk, to say, you may have thought some things about me, but I'm going to say right here, right now, I do this. This is where I come from. So that people who are looking on the outside and using their stereotypes or their judgments can hear that there is another view. There's another way to see this. There's another way for someone to be wanting to make a change in their life and maybe conducting their life. Now, the other thing that Jesus does, he says, today salvation has come to this house because he too is a son of Abraham. This is the Christ in us, reminding us that no matter what we have against other people, no matter how clearly they represent themselves to us by their actions, by their words, clearly and obviously, the ways in which we have been hurt or wounded or affected, that isn't even it's not even necessarily on the table. We know that. But what is incumbent on us for change to happen, for change and opportunity in ourselves to happen, is to remember that they too are children of God, that they too have some perfection inside of them, something untouched, no matter how they behave, no matter how they act, no matter where they've come from, no matter what they've done or failed to do, that there is something in them, just as there is in each and every one of us, that is untouched, that is beautiful and perfect and whole, and awaiting fuller expression. And we are all on that journey. And we are all along the path of unfolding whatever it is that we have been brought into this world, that our souls are complicit in bringing into expression. No matter where we are, no matter what challenges we have to overcome, no matter what comes our way, all of us are unfolding good and light, inasmuch as we are committed to that as being our change. As I said, Zacchaeus was the victim of judgment, a pariah among his neighbors. And as I also said, we participate in that. Judgment is a power of ours. It is a capacity for us to judge one thing from another, to decide, to discern what is ours to do, what is not, what is the right thing, what is the good thing, what is the best thing, what is best for me and for my family, what is best in the world. All the ways in which we use our discernment is a powerful gift. It is our privilege as well as our responsibility. But it also matters how we use it. which direction we're pointing it, whether we're pointing it in our own backyard or somebody else's backyard. And that's where we get into a little bit of trouble. Because when we are judging others, we are most often judging our insides by how they appear to us, by our projections, by our vision of them, by our assumptions about them, not by who they really are. Brian Doyle says, "There's a farewell reception for a fellow employee today. She's finally leaving after years of epic and smarmy incompetence and lies and devious politicking. Everyone else in my office gets ready to go, many of them grumbling, but they're going anyway. And I'm adamant that I am not going, no way. I think she was a terrible employee who misspent not only her own time and creativity, but the time and possible sweet work of many other people. And that bothers me for lots of reasons, mostly that our work is to elevate kids. So in my view, she hurt crucial and holy work, and it would be a whopping lie for me to stand at a reception and clap politely, or even, God help us, shake her hand and wish her well. Everyone leaves for the reception, and I sit there stewing, harumphing, and thinking about the egregious lies she told me and the slippery, underhanded things she did. And I redouble my insistence that I am not going, no way. And then I get up and go. Deep inside me is something, a voice, a governor, a knowledge maybe, that warns me when I am being a particular fool, which I regret to say is often. And this is one of those times. Because the Creator breathed life into this woman. The Creator made but one of her, ever. And who am I to sneer and pronounce judgment? Was I in attendance when the Creator laid the fundaments of all that is? I was certainly not. So who am I to be ignorant and arrogant now? My job is not to judge, but to witness, to hope, to believe that light can dawn in the most fearsome darkness. Even here in this relatively tiny matter, I must try to stand up and do that which is reverent and sings the miracle of the gift. So I go, snarling just a little. However it is that we can wake up to the idea that our judgment is not 100% true. It is always subjective by definition. It is always conditional by what we know, and if we were honest about it, by how we feel, at any given moment, mostly about ourselves. Our harshest criticism and judgment will often happen when we are feeling less and unworthy ourselves. Brene Brown, an author, says, "There are many tenets of wholeheartedness, but at its very core is vulnerability and worthiness. Facing uncertainty, exposure, and emotional risks, and knowing still that I am enough." Because you see, not only are we the ones throwing judgment, but we are the ones most afraid of it ourselves. It keeps us in our safe zone. It keeps us in the meat of the curve. It keeps us from stretching out or stepping out or making too big or loud of a fool of ourselves, our biggest fears. And I'll tell you that while that sounds like a superficial argument when we say it that way, fundamentally, deeply rooted in us is fear, such that it is a life or death kind of a fear. Because in fact, over many millennia, it has been unsafe physically to move away from the community or the village or the crowd. The safety of numbers, the ones who would look out for one another and share resources or put efforts together to make the food that would be necessary or to do the hunting that would bring food to the community or whatever. And to be excised or extra, what's the word I'm looking for? outside, thrown out, ostracized and excommunicated. I'll take both of those. And that whatever it is that makes you feel on the outside, those are big. And can you even feel a little bit of a zing when you even hear those words? Ostracized, thrown out, asked to leave the group. I mean, can you feel the cold, bitter wind blowing on your back? I mean, this is old stuff for us. It feels like life or death. We should be patient with ourselves if we're not willing to take steps. But I will tell you that now in this world, in this time, where you can take hold of that emotion and recognize what your real cost is, what your real risks are, and to decide that what in fact is going on for you is a call, that all it's doing is giving you the warning zing of fear that can actually translate, that fear can actually be translated into excitement. It's really the same zing if you kind of think about it. When you think about something that calls to you, that pulls you, that you're excited about, you can feel the excitement, then you feel the cold fear. But then if you start to take that cold fear and rationalize it and move it back into that excitement, it's the same electrical charge. It's the same energy, really, to help propel you to the next thing. So you can either choose to shut down in fear and be paralyzed, or to become excited enough to step across into the new possibilities and accept the possibility that others may judge us. And we'll feel that judgment, but at the same time recognize that it has no power over us. We do not give it. Our worthiness is already inherent in us, whether others can see it or not. Our worthiness is the only place we can reach into and represent, because that is part of our unfolding. Our worthiness, from the sycamore tree down to the ground, that says, you know what, I belong here. I'm one of you. This is important to me as it's important to you. And I represent myself by stepping out and risking being judged. Risking change out loud in front of others. He stood there and told the Lord exactly who he was and what his values were, giving all the people who heard him an opportunity to see something they couldn't see in him from the distance of their judgment. How can we practice stepping out there? Well, maybe one step at a time. Karen Barber says, I'm an overly cautious person. Unfortunately, that's not a good trait when you're trying to start a new ministry. My journal is crammed with my struggles to take the risks that go along with startups. One day I wrote to myself, I need to pray often because I am always one doubt away from failing to act. I need to pray because I am always one doubt away from failing to act. A few days later, the word faith popped into my mind during a morning prayer walk. And since I sorely needed that faith, I decided to try an experiment. I closed my eyes and attempted to continue walking at my normal pace. I worried, though, what if I get off the sidewalk and into the road? 1, 2, 3 blind steps. I suddenly knew how Peter felt walking on the water. You're okay for exactly 3 steps, then you absolutely have to look. I didn't open my eyes all the way. I just squinted for a second, taking a small peek to make sure I was still on the sidewalk. 1, 2, 3 more blind steps, and I had to peek a bit. No matter how much I challenged myself, I couldn't overcome the compulsion to take a small, reassuring peek after 3 steps. The Bible says we should walk by faith, not by sight. Easier said than done. Fortunately, if you're a little on the cautious side like me, God knows you'll need to peek sometimes too. Brian Tracy, self-development author and speaker, said, move out of your comfort zone. You can only grow if you're willing to feel awkward and uncomfortable when you try something new. I would second that by saying you were only doing something new if you feel uncomfortable and awkward and afraid. Because if you know this, because have you ever noticed the little mind games that you play? Sometimes you think you're doing something new, but you've really just redressed it. And if you continue to feel confident doing it, my guess is it's not that new to you. You're doing something under the guise of a different set of conditions that really is the same energy. There's really not a risk. It doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt to do it. Maybe you're diversifying your abilities, but you're staying within the same zone. Just remind you of that. When you get ready to step across into some new territory, some new fresh doubts arise, warning signs, you're stepping across, people could judge you, you could lose everything, you could step into the road. There's all kinds of ways this could go bad, go wrong, have done so in the past. You know, alarm, alarm. And that's important to take heed of and be conscious and be aware. This is what you're actually navigating toward. But you retain the power. You retain the judgment. You retain the capacity to choose where you're going to place your energy and to navigate with it, being called according to the truth of yourself. You see, making a change in our life requires that first, that we are true to ourselves. Because it's only you that knows deep down what you are here to do, what you're here to bring, what difference you are here to make in the world. And as you discern that for yourself, you cannot give that over to the judgment of others, wildly judging from the sidelines. Those who are taking their own fears and projecting them on you because you look scary to them, because you might actually be calling them unconsciously into doing something they know they ought to be trying. Maybe not yours, but definitely their own. Phoebe Ing, author, speaker on social justice issues, says, risk itself is a process of constant unfolding. And taking risks is the process of peeling back the layers of what you are and who you want to be. Peeling back the layers of who you are and moving into what you are wanting to be. Wow. That sounds like change to me. That sounds like fresh life. That is the unfolding of that perfection, of that beauty that we've been entrusted with, that is here for us to mine, to express, and to expose to the world. That's what risk does. That's what we're called to do. And that's what ultimately changes us. Anaïs Nin, a writer, said, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was greater than the risk it took to bloom. May you feel the call and do it anyway. God bless you all.